This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
They come to the top of the lane. Teddy's Promise on the inside. Groupie Doll is right there. Dance Card the Grey on the outside. Sweet Lulu tries to hang tough along the inside as well. Groupie Doll hanging on. Judy the Beauty's come back at them as well, and Dance Card on the outside. But it's Groupie Doll. Groupie Doll, Dance Card, Judy the Beauty going to hit it together. Groupie Doll along the inside. Groupie Doll, Judy the Beauty. Groupie Doll in a thriller.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Down the Stretch. I'm Mark Asano. On this morning's show, 4 first-time guests, beginning in just a couple of moments with the new owner of Groupie Doll, Mandy Pope. She will be followed by a trio of trainers with stakes runners this evening at Churchill Downs. From north of the border, Malcolm Pierce and Nick Gonzalez, as well as Trace Abbott. And we will take a look at 4 stakes going to the internal break. So all of that and much, much more if you stay with us for this, our November 16th edition of the program, which is being sponsored by Embrace the Race, the apparel for the horse racing lifestyle. Available at the Museum of Racing, at their new store at 12 Circular Street in Saratoga, and online at embracetherace.com. Good morning on this gorgeous November Saturday. I have to tell you, if the weather would stay this way for the next 4 months, I wouldn't complain about winter so much. It's going to be a wonderful weekend, good racing. Let's get started, and we get started, unfortunately, on a sad note. Longtime New York turf rider Paul Moran died last Saturday in Saratoga. Paul was 67. The turf writer for New York Newsday for many years, Moran won a pair of Eclipse Awards, one of them for a piece on Gopher Juan's tragic breakdown in the 1990 Breeders' Cup Distaff at Belmont Park. Now, folks, I was in that press box that day, and I can tell you that it was unlike anything I had ever been involved in prior to that or since. The emotions ran very high that day. And faced with a deadline, Paul wrote a wonderful piece on the Great Filly. Now, you can read that piece if you go to John Preachy's website, horseraceinsider.com. Paul Moran had a passion for the sport and a passion for writing about it. Our condolences to go out to his family and friends. And Tour Allure, who suffered a brutal beat in the 2011 Breeders' Cup Mile, has been euthanized after breaking down during a routine gallop recently at Keeneland. The 6-year-old suffered a compound fracture of a hind pastern. Tour Allure won 6 races during his career, including the 2011 Woodbine Mile and the Bernard Baruch, the latter at Saratoga, and earned nearly $1.4 million for trainer Charlie Lopresti. And we are up to our first break on this November 16th edition of the show. When we return, Mandy Pope, as we go to this break, the Long Island, last Saturday at Aqueduct. The 8-5 favorite, number 3, Ang Marine. Pace would really make this race. So we're going to take a look at a piece of the Long Island to the break. Back with Mandy Pope right after these messages.
So their positions have been unchanged as they move into the second turn here. Inimitable Romane has been the leader. Strathnaber has been just to the outside of Left a Message. They continue to run that way. A break of another 4. Back to Agu Marine. Right next to her has been Shepherd's Pie. Covered up in behind them has been Top Breach. A good journey so far. Covered up all the way. And a break of another 3 back to White Rose. Just laboring along at the back of the pack. So they got the 3/4 mark in 1 minute 20 and 3/5 seconds. Inimitable Romane by a measured length over Strathnaber. Left a Message couldn't have had a more beautiful trip. Break of another 3 back to A. Goomarine running along in third. And then it's Todd Breed right together with Shepherd's Pie and White Rose. Into the far turn, 3 furlongs remaining. Inimitable Romane trying to go it all the way on the lead. Now Strathnaver is really ratcheting up that pressure. And just in behind left a message who switches into action on the outside. A. Goomarine and Todd Breed down toward the rail. Top of the stretch here. Inimitable Romane still has plenty left. Indeed kicks away, leaving Strathnaver behind in second. White Rose on the outside. To Breed coming up fast very late in the game, and To Breed is coming fast. Still has to catch Inimitable Romane, who's coming down to the line, and Inimitable Romane will do it wire to wire at 28-1. Krista Carlo lulled them to sleep aboard Inimitable Romane and did it wire to wire after some very soft early fractions. Close second to Breed and left a message.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Embrace the tradition. Embrace the passion. Embrace the race. Apparel for the horse racing lifestyle.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Asano, and the New York-bred Inimitable Romane for Graham Motion and Krista Carlo wire to wire to win the Long Island by a length over Todd Breed and left a message at 28-1. Our first guest this morning is a very popular lady in racing. She recently added to her very high-quality band of broodmares at Keeneland, and one of those purchases was Groupie Doll, and then increased her popularity by announcing that the champ would race again in the Cigar Mile. Joining us live via telephone, Mandy Pope. Mandy, Mark Asano welcoming you to Down the Stretch.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm very glad to be a part of your show.
Well, we are very, very glad to have you, Mandy. In just a moment, we are going to take a look at Groupie Doll as she moves into the gate for this year's Filly and Mare Sprint. She is number 11 for our audience. Mandy, tell us, how much did you know about Groupie Doll? How closely had you followed her before you made the purchase at Keeneland?
I had followed her, obviously, from last year, from her great career and winning the Breeders' Cup last year, and then watching her this year and hoping the best for her. And actually, in the Cigar Mile last year, I watched that very closely because the horse that did beat her is actually a half-brother to another one of my mares. So at the time, I was pulling for Stay Thirsty and didn't realize I would one day own Groupie Doll.
Mandy, what were some of the specific reasons for buying Groupie Doll at Keeneland?
Obviously, I went through and I was looking at race records on mares. I'm trying to build a band that's rounded out with great race mares, and then also with mares that have produced great stakes horses already. And this year I bought a maiden and then a couple of mares that have produced great stakes horses, so I was still looking for the one really good race mare. And I obviously found that in Groupie Doll. So I quietly, or as quietly as I could, went over to look at her at Keeneland, and they had a monitor out and were showing all of her races. And so I got to watch them all right there. And when they brought her out, I just immediately fell in love with her.
Mandy, originally, did you purchase Groupie Doll strictly as a broodmare prospect?
Yes, I did. I really wasn't looking for a horse to race. And, she's 5 turning 6, and so I realized, she probably needs to be bred as a 6-year-old. And I really hadn't thought about it at all, to be honest with you.
So what factors went into your decision at some point to say, let's go ahead and race her again?
It was talking with Buff. And he brought the subject up, and I really hadn't even thought about the Cigar Mile at all. And he brought it up, as did a couple of other people. And Buff and I talked about it and asked him how the mare was doing, and he said she was doing great and couldn't be any better. And I asked him if he still owned her, what would he do with her, and he didn't think twice and Cigar Mile. So we actually took her to Wayne and Kathy farm, Timbertown, right after the sale, and we made an appointment for the next day to take her for a visit with Dr. Bramlage. And Dr. Bramlage went over her and declared her fit to race. So between Dr. Bramlage and Buff and all the people that were asking if I was going to run her, it seemed like the perfect decision.
Well, you've certainly made a lot of people happy with that decision, Mandy. At this point, and listen, we all understand plans can change, but at this point, how many times do you plan on racing Groupie Doll?
I really haven't thought past the Cigar Mile, to be honest with you. And that decision will obviously be a joint decision between Buff and myself, and it will be totally based on how happy and sound Groupie Doll is. I do not want to take any unnecessary or undue chances with her, and so I prefer just to take it race by race.
Mandy, have you raced in the past, or are you strictly a breeder?
No, I have had racehorses, a few here and there. I've gotten much more into it in the last couple of years. In fact, I've been buying yearlings to race last year and this year. And then I was very lucky that Goldmark allowed me to buy half of my loot last January. So this was the first year where I got to travel to the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness as part owner of a horse that was running. And that was very exciting.
Mandy, am I correct? Were you or are you the breeder of Tisway, a horse that we are very familiar with here in the Northeast?
Yes, I am. He was, I remember selling him as a yearling, and I always loved him. And he was always very athletic, but also a very kind horse, which is a trait that I like in all the horses. And he was great. And Bethany, his dam, I still have, and she is currently enfoaled to Taffet, I believe. And I have a 2-year-old half full brother to Tisway, actually, that we haven't started yet. He's a big growthy horse, so it'll probably be the first of the year before he actually starts.
Mandy, let's talk specifically about 4 of your recent broodmare purchases and give our audience an idea of how you put a value on them. And we will begin with Groupie Doll, who you paid $3.1 million for. How do you arrive upon a range of figures for, obviously, an unproven broodmare prospect like Groupie Doll?
Well, you obviously start by looking at their pedigree and their race record. And then you add in their conformation. And then you have to factor in the marketplace, which is obviously probably the biggest factor when setting your range of what you're going to pay for her. And so after having spent money at Basic Tifton, I was well aware of the market. And we actually valued her between $3 and $3.5 million, mainly based on her, like I said, her race record and her confirmation.
Now, how about your thoughts on some potential stallions next year for Groupie Doll? Who are you thinking about?
Well, I think that we will probably go with a sprinter, since that's what she's really good at. We'll just want to keep that going on with her foals. And, of course, the first one to come to mind right now would be Spikestown, would be my choice right now, but I really haven't sat down and studied pedigrees and nicking and genetics and all of that at this point. I'm just starting to do that with all of my mares.
You also bought a mare who is not nearly as well known as Groupie Doll, Better, Better, Better. You bought her in foal to Warfront for $5.2 million. What made her worth that much money?
Her sire, Galileo, is probably one of the best broodmare sires in the world, and also a best sire in the world. So that was very exciting. She has a lovely pedigree. It's European, which I don't have in my group. That was a new addition, which I think helped to round things out. And then obviously being in foal to Warfront pushed the price even higher. He's probably, in this country, the most popular stallion right now.
Mandy, is it too simplistic to say that looking at the numbers at the recently concluded sale, is that emphasizing how strong the breeding market is now and how strong the overall economy is at this point?
I think I'm a little bit conservative, but I think it's definitely emphasizing how strong the breeding market is. And I think that has occurred because of what has happened in the past 4 years, where people cut down breeding the lesser mares and the lesser stallions. And I think our breeding program in general has thrived from that and become much stronger. And that can only help us. And then going forward, I think the economy is getting better, and the fact that because we've bred last mares over the last 4 years, there's a limited number of foals and yearlings available. So if you have a good one, people are going to want them, and there are not that many of them out there. So I think for the next 2 years, because it'll take that long before people start seeing an increase in the foal production, that for the next 2 years it should be fairly strong.
Last year, you made everybody sit up and take notice when you bought 2011 Horse of the Year, Havre de Grace, for a cool $10 million. That's a big number. What made her worth that much money in your mind?
Well, I'm sure the excitement of the time added a little to it. But obviously, you just don't get to go and buy a mare that's Horse of the Year every day or even every 10 years. She was a very, very special mare from what she had done on the racetrack and being a Horse of the Year. And when you go and look at her, she's the epitome of a racehorse. And to me, you go and you look at her, and the hairs on your arm just stand up, and you know you're in the presence of something that's very great.
Has she been bred? And if so, who did you breed her to?
Yes, she's in foal to Tappet, and she is due to foal in February.
Well, That's going to be very, very exciting. Mandy, there's always been a debate in do outstanding race mares, such as Havre de Grace and Groupie Doll, do outstanding race mares have a better chance of being outstanding brood mares? Part of the industry says yes, part says no. From the money you've been spending on some of these mares, would it be fair to say that you think there's an advantage to having been an outstanding race mare?
Well, that is what I think, and I'm certainly praying that it's true.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot invested in it. But I think you have to be very careful on who you breed these mares to, which is why we take a great deal of time and we call in several experts, pedigree experts and genetic experts, and gather up all this information. And then Wayne Sweezy and I, we sit down and we put it all together and try to come up with the best matings that we can. And time will hopefully prove us right.
Mandy, finally, of the big four, last year you also purchased 2011 Kentucky Oaks heroine Plum Pretty for $4.2 million. Talk about her. Has she been bred, and if so, to who?
Yes, Plum Pretty is doing great. She is in full to distorted humor, and in talking with all the experts, she was one of the few that everybody seemed to have landed on the same horse. So that was an easy decision there. But she's doing great, and she and Havre de Grace share the same paddock. And they get along most of the time quite well together, other than when people bring carrots out to the paddock. Havre de Grace is a little bit of a glutton there, and she doesn't like to share.
Mandy, what are your plans when it comes to the first foals of Havre de Grace and Plum Pretty and Better, Better, Better and Groupie Doll down the road? Do you plan on keeping them and racing them, or do you plan on selling them?
A lot of that decision will depend on whether they're colts or fillies. I'll have a much bigger inclination to want to keep fillies out of the mares, or at least a couple of fillies, and then probably sell the first couple of colts and hope that they sell for a whole lot of money and then go on and make good racehorses.
And finally, Mandy, I assume I know the answer to this question, but I've got to ask it. Do you plan on being at Aqueduct 2 weeks from today for the Cigar Mile?
I think I can probably manage that. So I'm sure we will be there. I've invited lots of friends and some family, and hopefully the weather will be kind to us all, and it will be a very exciting day. It will be my first Grade 1 race of a horse that I own all of and racing in my silk. So I'm looking forward to it with great anticipation.
Well, Mandy, first of all, thank you so much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. We appreciate it. All congratulations. You are building one very exciting broodmare band, and we are so pleased that you not only purchased Groupie Doll, but you decided to race her at least one more time, and all the best 2 weeks down the road with her in the Cigar Mile.
Well, thank you very much, and Ruthie and I and Buff, we all appreciate the great fan base and hope that they also show up to urge her on across the finish line.
Thank you, Mandy. Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Mandy Pope, ladies and gentlemen, and we are up to our next break on this November 16th edition of the show. When we return, Mr. Malcolm Pierce, as we go to the break, the Cardinal handicap last Saturday at Churchill. 2-1 favorite, number 2, Starstruck. 2.5-1 second choice, number 8, Abaco. So we'll take a look at the Cardinal to the break. Back with Malcolm Pierce right after these messages.
Soft Whispers out in front, but coming back to the field, the lead reduced now to only 3 lengths by Solid Appeal, who is in second. Somali Lemonade to the hedge is in third. Rare Event out wide in fourth. Miss Ida is in fifth. 3 lengths away, Abarco, and then Starstruck making ground around the outside as they go through halfway. 48-1 for the half mile in the 40th running of the Cardinal Handicap, and it is Soft Whisper who still has the lead. It's reduced to a length and a half by Solid Appeal racing in second. Somali Lemonade makes an early move around the turn and following that one through, but 4 wide now is Starstruck as they race towards the final quarter of a mile. There's a seam against the inside hedge for Ms. Ida, and Ms. Ida bursts through now on the inside of Solid Appeal. Starstruck on the outside. Somali Lemonade is next, followed by Soft Whisper, and then Abarco down the outside inside the final furlong. Ms. Ida against the hedge still has the lead. Solid Appeal in second. Here comes Abarco down the outside, and it is Abarco beginning to get up to give Shug McGahey a third win in the Cardinal Handicap. It was Abarco who beat Ms. Ida, Solid Appeal, and Starstruck.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Using CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Simply log on with your username and password from the homepage. 2. Fund your Capital OTB account through our Easy Money, Green Dot, or Visa MasterCard options. And 3. Place your bet on one of our 3 easy-to-navigate wagering platforms, Capital Bet TV, Capital Bet Express, or Capital Bet Pro. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Asano. My thanks to Mandy Pope once again for having joined us, and Abaco for Shug and Rosie. There's an interesting combination from far back to win the Cardinal by a length. Our next guest this morning is Woodbine-based, but he will have a pair of 3-year-olds in Golden Sabre and Dance Again for tonight's Turf Stakes at Churchill. Joining us live via telephone, Mr. Malcolm Pierce. Malcolm, Mark Asano welcoming you to Down the Stretch.
Well, thanks for having me.
Malcolm, you were an assistant to Jim Day when Samson had one of my favorite fillies, the Great Dance Smartly. Malcolm, tell us, what was she like? And talk about that very special 1991 season.
Well, she was a very special filly and maybe the best horse that I've ever been around and worked with in my whole career of training horses. And, I mean, it was thrilling that day for little horse from Canada, and she went unbeaten that year to come down here and finish off her season by winning a Breeders' Cup race. It was quite an experience.
That had to be not only the Breeders' Cup, but that entire 91 season where she beat males north of the border. She won the Canadian Triple Crown. You don't find too many like her, do you, Malcolm?
I'm still looking for one myself.
You and every other trainer with a license out there. Malcolm, you have a 3-year-old grass horse who I have followed since last year by the name of Up With the Birds. Here he is in the recent Jamaica. For our audience, he's third from last on the screen. Malcolm, I like him very much. Tell us about him.
Well, he's been a great horse to us this year, and he's kind of improved with every start. And I actually thought that maybe we were stepping into too deep of waters, taking him to the Jamaica at Belmont. But he proved up to the task, and he even impressed me that day because he'd been running again in restricted races most of the summer with Canadian breds in our Triple Crown. And anyway, but I should have been tipped off. He ran second at Keeneland in the spring to a pretty good horse, and anyway, he's just matured over the season, and hopefully we'll have some fun with him as an older grass horse around the country.
He was second in the Queen's Plate, and the pace probably hurt him rather dramatically that day. How disappointing was that loss?
Well, it was very disappointing because I still believe I had the best horse, but it was just circumstances that day. The heavens opened up. We got a lot of rain. It made the Poly track a speed-favoring track, and obviously we weren't going to change my horse's style. And it was a mile and a quarter and 2 jumps for a winner, and it was 600,000 of the winner and 200,000 the second. It's not a bad payday, but it was disappointing because it would have been a very nice feather in my cap to win a Queen's Plate.
What are you going to do with him this winter?
He's actually down in Ocala at Sampson Farms and getting some turnout and just some freshening, and we got to plan out his year next year, but it could start in his first race could be either in March at the fairgrounds, where I'm going to be this winter, or possibly Keeneland in the spring. We're looking at giving him a good rest and having a fresh horse come springtime.
It looks like he can run all day, Malcolm, on any number of surfaces. Is turf his best surface?
Well, probably you'd have to say yes right now with the quality of company that he beat in the Jamaica race. I'd have to say he stepped up a few lengths on the grass, that's for sure.
All right, let's move to your Commonwealth entrant, Golden Sabre. Here he is in the Charlie Barley, 2 starts back. For our audience, he is number 6. He's third from last at the bottom of your screen as we pick it up. Malcolm, since you moved him to turf right after his debut, he has been perfect on grass, aside from the disqualification, but he has run extremely well on turf. Talk about him if you would.
Yeah, no, he's been a lovely horse to train. He actually, in his last start, he beat a horse called River 7, who was shipped down for this race too, and is one of the choices. So, I think he's got a lot of upside to him. Obviously, both these races this evening are very deep fields, but I give him a chance. The biggest adjustment is going to be it's a very different course here, tighter turns and shorter stretch. Whereas, at Woodbine, he's run his races around one big swooping turn, and we'll just have to find out tonight whether he just prefers that Woodbine turf or whether he can handle the tight turns of the Churchill course.
Following the Charlie Barley, he didn't race again for 2.5 months. Was there something wrong, or did you just decide to freshen him up?
No, he had a little mishap one day coming home from the racetrack. He was just feeling too good, and accidentally, because he's not a mean horse at all, but he dropped his rider and ran back to the barn, but in the process he didn't make one turn and slid, so he was all scraped up on one side of his body, and at that point I thought maybe that he would be out for the rest of the season, but he was a good patient and he healed up very well, and all those scars are all gone, and that was that. But that was the reason for his break. No injury. It was just a mishap falling on the road on the pavement.
And how is he doing coming up to tonight's Commonwealth?
I think he couldn't be training any better. He's been working great, and he's coming into the race as good as he can be at the moment.
You are also going to be running a long shot, Dance Again, in this evening's Mrs. Revere. Here she is in her last start, a victory in the Carotene. For our audience as we pick it up, she is number 5. She is next to last on the screen. Malcolm, talk to us about Dance Again.
Well, she's just been an improving filly in the last 2 or 3 months, and I wasn't totally surprised that she won the Carotene, because she had trained so well coming into that race, and she had actually had one of her works with Up With the Birds on the grass before he went to the Jamaica, and she gave him all he wanted that day in the workout. So that kind of opened my eyes that this is just an improving filly, and I think she's going to be nothing but better even as a 4-year-old. Tonight's race is very deep, and it'll be a big test for her from the outside post. But anyway, Patrick will have to work out the trip, but she's also doing very well, and it's also a big change for these horses. They've never run under the lights before, so that sometimes can adversely affect horses. So, I've got a few question marks between the tight turns and the lights and all that stuff. But I'm optimistic that both horses are going to run well.
Well, she had been quite consistent on turf, but the Carotene was actually her first victory on grass. Does that signify that she's getting better, moving forward, becoming more mature?
I think so. I mean, she had her little 2-year-old problems, and she didn't get to the races till October of last year as a 2-year-old, and then she might even be just as good on the dirt. I don't think she's very good on the poly track, but she broke her maiden in an off-the-turf race at the fairgrounds last winter, and the Awesome Agains, they dirt quite well. So, excuse me, we'll have a chance to try that again sometime later this winter after she gets a little break after this race, because she's had 7 starts already this year, and she's going to go directly to Florida from here. But, we'll find out as a 4-year-old whether she's better on the dirt or on the turf.
Well, Malcolm, thank you so much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. We appreciate it. All the best later this evening at Churchill with Golden Saber and Dance Again, and we'll look forward to speaking with you again very soon.
Oh, thank you again.
Thank you. Malcolm Pierce, ladies and gentlemen. And we are up to our next break. When we return, Mr. Nick Gonzalez. As we go to this break last Sunday, the Hollywood Preview, the 90 cent to the dollar favorite, number 4, Kobe's Back. First start since mid-June. 3-2 second choice, number 2, Shared Belief. So we'll take a look at the Hollywood Preview to the break. Back with Nick Gonzalez right after these messages.
They're at the post. They're off. Good start. Papa Turf from the inside shows speed. Shared Belief right alongside. To the outside and Brother Soldier. These three right across the track. Then comes Golden Dynamo. Kobe's Back broke fine, but he's got no speed early, and he's 5th and last, 6 behind. Up the backstretch with Papa Turf well off the rail, and he leads by a neck from Shared Belief, a similar margin to Brother Soldier, 3 deep in 3rd. Then it's 2 lengths to Golden Dynamo. He's 4th at the rail and about 2.5 or 3 from the front. Kobe's Back is closer now. He's still 5th and last, but only 4 lengths from first to last as they go into the far turn in the 32nd Hollywood Preview Stakes, and the leader is still Papa Turf. Papa Turf just half ahead from Shared Belief, who turns up the pressure. When they get to the quarter pole, could be a new leader. Shared Belief is outside of Papa Turf. Then comes Brother Soldier. He's all in. Kobe's Back is going to be 4 wide, turning for home. Draws within 2 of the lead. Golden Dynamo has dropped out last. Shared Belief is the new leader, but here comes Kobe's Back in the center. He draws within a length and 3/4 of the lead. Shared Belief gets away, though, past mid-stretch, and Shared Belief has suddenly opened up 4 lengths. Make it 5, make it 6. Kobe's Back is watching him race away. Shared Belief straight and strong. Wow. Shared Belief wins the 32nd Hollywood Preview Stakes, and he won it by 8 lengths over Kobe's Back, then Brother Soldier and Papa Turf.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Wagering at CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Capital Bet TV, the fastest and easiest online wagering experience where you can monitor 5 different tracks simultaneously. 2. Capital Bet Express. Its straightforward program layout and interactive handicapping information lets you build your wager quickly and efficiently. And 3. Capital Bet Pro, designed especially for the professional horse player. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Asano. My thanks to Malcolm Pierce once again for having joined us in Shared Belief, a son of Candy Ride, for Jerry Hollendorfer and Corey Nakatani by 7 3/4 over Kobe's Back to dominate the preview. Up next, the 2-turn Hollywood Futurity. Up next for us, our next guest, like Malcolm Pierce, he is Woodbine-based. He will send his stakes winner, River 7, to tonight's Commonwealth at Churchill Downs. We welcome live via telephone Mr. Nick Gonzalez. Nick, Mark Casano welcoming you to Down the Stretch.
Hello, Mark. Happy to be here and happy to talk to everybody out there in OTB land.
Well, that's wonderful, Nick. Let us discuss River 7. Now, this may be coincidence, but since you got him off the synthetic this year, he seems to really have blossomed. Talk about that.
Yeah, we were always ready to explore those other avenues. I mean, as a 2-year-old, we had no other options. By the time October came around and he had won the Gray Stakes, there was obviously wasn't going to be any turf or any dirt, as you know, at Woodbine. So we gave him some time off and brought him back on his 3-year-old campaign. Started off, obviously, on the poly track at Woodbine because we had Queen's Plate visions in our mind. And, we got past a couple rough starts and got him over to the dirt track at Fort Erie in the $500,000 Prince of Wales Stakes and ran a very good second to Mark Cassie's Uncaptured and a career-high 94 buyer. And then we turned our path over to the turf course, which we were highly anticipating because I had talked to Roger Atfield about the horse's mother in the past, and he said to me, Nick, if you like the horse on the dirt and the poly track, you wait till you get him on the turf. His mother loved it, and he says, I'm thinking he's going to like it too. So, we had first start on the turf, going 1.5 miles in Breeder Stakes, and he was beat by Malcolm's Up with the Birds, who was a Grade 1 winner in the Jamaica. After that, got beat in an allowance race to a very, very tough horse who was against us today, Gold Sabre of Malcolm's. And then we took on the older horses in our last start in the Labib going 1 mile. And, we caught a soft yielding turf course, and he just freaked out and ran the race of his career. And, here we sit today at Churchill Downs.
Well, we are taking a look at the Labib. I was impressed by this effort. You had to be impressed by it. I mean, he's inside under pressure all the way and just draws off by 10. The thing is, Nick, we know that often on soft or yielding courses, performances can look a bit skewed. How much of this magnificent performance do you think was aided by the really soft turf?
Well, that's something that, we're always going to have a question about. I will say one thing about the horse, and because we do the majority of our training on the dirt training track at Woodbine, and even when it's muddy and sloppy and so forth, we still take him out and gallop him. And my rider told me, he said, Nick, if you think this horse is good when you breeze him on a fast dirt track, so if that horse ever runs in the mud, you'll be 10 times better. So I'm transforming that from a hard, firm turf course onto this yielding turf course, and really, nobody ever thought that he could beat those older horses by 10 lengths last time. But in retrospect, and when I listen to my rider, gets on him every day for 2 years, telling me about what a freak he is in the mud and slop, you could make a correlation between those two surfaces and say, he's just, maybe just a way better horse on a soft turf and a sloppy, muddy dirt course. So that's what we're just thinking. That's his best surfaces.
So you wouldn't mind some rain in Louisville later this afternoon or early evening?
Well, listen, it rained last night, rained yesterday afternoon, and their turf course here hasn't really dried up in a couple of weeks. They had taken the races off the turf earlier in the week, and they ran horses over the course the last couple of days, and the course was listed as good. So we've had overcast skies, precipitation, and, there's not going to be any sunshine or wind to dry it up, so we're going to get something a lot less than firm today, that's for sure.
Off that big win in the Labib, I assume you haven't had to train him real hard for this tonight's Commonwealth. How's he been training up to the race?
Yeah, no, you make a great point. He's a fit horse. He's been training all year. He's doing tremendous. And we just took him over some time ago to the training track there at Woodbine by himself and breezed him 5/8 of a mile over the dirt with not a jockey. We had my exercise boy on him. And, he went in 59 and galloped out 112, 7/8, and 125 just on cruise. And I'll tell you, he took that work out tremendous. And, that's just about all we did with him in between races. And, he's a happy horse right now. Had a good ship from Canada here to Churchill, doing great. I just left the barn a little while ago, and he was there bopping his head. He's a happy horse. And, we're looking forward to 7:30 this evening.
Sean Bridgmohan will ride him for you for the first time. Nick, any concerns about a first-time rider? any idiosyncrasies with River 7?
No, not one little bit. And I had talked to Sean about that because he asked me if there's anything really, important that he should know about the horse. And I told him, I says, Sean, he's a simple horse to ride, inside, outside, in behind, and like you made reference to him taking that pressure the last time he ran. He's a easy horse, kind of push button. He doesn't, he doesn't have any quirks or idiosyncrasies that going to complicate his ride today. No, it's going to be pretty simple.
Well, Nick, congratulations on the big win in Labib. All the best with him later this evening in the Commonwealth, and thanks so much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch.
All right, it's been my pleasure, and we'll talk to you down the road.
All right, thank you, Nick. Nick Gonzalez, ladies and gentlemen, and we are up to our final break. When we return, Mr. Trace Abbott, as we go to the break, last Saturday, the Moccasin at Hollywood, the 4-5 favorite, number 5, Bajan. So we'll take a look at the Moccasin to the break. Back with Trace Abbott right after these messages.
They're at the post. They're off. Perfect start. Sergeant O'Rourke and 4 Emma shows speed. Between those two, E equals MC squared. Bajan drops out to last as Lemon Dioro moves through at the rail. Out of the chute with Sergeant O'Rourke the leader. It's a length and a half to Lemon Dioro, who's taken over second, just inside of E equals MC squared third. 4 Emma is fourth, about to take third, and there she goes up into third. The big favorite Bajan is fifth and last at the rail. She's 3.5 behind with a half mile to go. In the 26th Moccasin Stakes, 2-year-old fillies into the far turn, and the leader is Sergeant O'Rourke. Sergeant O'Rourke, 3/4 of a length now to Lemon Dioro, who is second. Bajan has moved through inside of 4 Emma. They're together now, set third and fourth, and about 2 from the front. Bajan is moving into a clear third now, and she's got a length and 3/4 to make up. E equals MC squared is now the trailer. Top of the stretch they run. Sergeant O'Rourke, Lemon Dioro, and now Bajan comes off the fence, and she'll make a 3-wide rush for the front. Then comes 4 Emma. She's only a length and a half off the lead. E equals MC squared, and here comes Bajan. Bajan has fired to the lead. She's now a length and a half. Make it 2 in front. 4 Emma is running up into second. Bajan's got the jump of 16th out. 4 Emma is clearly second. 3 across the track for third. The Moccasin goes to Bajan. 26 Moccasin Stakes, Victor Espinoza and Bajan won by 2. 4 Emma was second. Lemon Dioro might have been third in a photo over Sergeant O'Rourke.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. With a newly designed and engineered internet wagering platform, enhanced video streaming, additional funding options, and 3 new individual wagering opportunities, CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. Combine that with our all-new mobile website. You have 2 of the most powerful, innovative, and advanced wagering platforms available today. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Asano. My thanks to Nick Gonzalez once again for having joined us. And Bajan for Simon Callahan. Victor Espinoza by 2 1/4 to capture the Moccasin. Batting cleanup this morning. We saw him at Saratoga this past summer with his wonderful filly, Nellie Cashman. Tonight she starts in the Mrs. Rivera Churchill, and we welcome in live via telephone Mr. Trace Abbott. Trace, Mark Casano welcoming you to Down the Stretch.
Thanks very much, Mark. Happy to be here.
Nice to have you, Trace. I mentioned Saratoga in the open. Well, here's Nellie Cashman in the Lake Placid. Turning for home, she is number 4. She's third on the fence. Trace, she ran big this day, only to be disqualified. That had to be tough on you.
It certainly was, but in hindsight, before the race, had somebody asked me would I have been happy to finish third, I would have absolutely said, of course. So, after the initial shock of it, after the initial joy of thinking we'd won and then the shock of being taken down, when the dust settled, we were still happy to leave, with some black tights and a filly that, had shown that her run in the Virginia Oaks wasn't a fluke.
Yeah, and speaking of the Virginia Oaks, she had come to Saratoga off that upset win. Trace, it appears as though Nellie Cashman really improved when you stretched her out and sent her to turf.
She absolutely did. We had always really high hopes for her because she trained really forwardly, and showed us that she had the ability. But the switch to turf really made the difference to her. Being by mine shaft, I put it off as long as I could because I didn't really think that that was going to be her ideal surface. But she has two brothers by pretty turf influential stallions, and they both are dirt horses. So that's what the mare gets.
Now, following the race at Saratoga, Nellie Cashman was away for 2 months. She returned in the Valley View to finish second. Our audience is about to watch it. For our audience, she is number 1. First of all, Trace, was the 2-month layoff by design, or did something happen?
No, it absolutely was by design. I originally made the decision that we were going to skip the Lake Placid and then go to the Garden City, but then I kind of got sucked into that. And Saratoga is Saratoga, and you don't want to miss an opportunity to go up there. But we gave her a week off. She after the Lake Placid, and we trained her with the idea of getting the invitation to the Queen Elizabeth II, and so we then made the decision. That's where we point her, and she was working brilliantly towards that, and then she spiked a mild temperature the week before, missed a day of training, and I just decided, not being able to go to a Grade 1 at Keeneland with my A game, that we'd skip it and go to the backup plan with the Valley View.
Now, she set a very good trip this day from the inside post. Often handicappers, when they watch a horse set a beautiful trip, and then the next time they draw outside like she does tonight, will try to beat her. But considering that is it fair to say she wasn't 100% for the Valley View? Considering that, how good was this second?
I wouldn't say she wasn't 100%. I would say more that she wouldn't have been 100% the week before, but I felt that she was back to her best again. She was down the rail there at Keeneland, and I think that course drains pretty well. But I think maybe it would have been a little bit more of in her benefit to be drawn a little wider, at least to have the run that Overheard had on the outside. When she won the Virginia Oaks, she was drawn 7. She got a good trip. I wouldn't put her big run there in the Valley View down to an inside draw and a ground-saving trip by any means.
The effort in the Valley View, Trace, in your opinion, is that the type of effort off a 2-month layoff that should move her forward for tonight?
I really kind of honed on her leading up to that. She'd had some really good breezes, both on the synthetic surfaces, Bear Hill, the Tapeta, and also on the dirt. I would like to think that maybe running fresh had helped her, just giving her the opportunity to, freshen up after kind of running every 4 weeks early on in the season. So I would expect her to, she's been training well. This is the time of year with fillies. You kind of watch them very closely. You pay very close attention to their coats. Are their coats coming in? Are they kind of telling you they're done for the season? And she's been training great, and she looks great right now. So I've been happy with her, and I think she's coming into this run rounding back into form off of that last run at Keeneland.
Trace, has she run under the lights before, either at Penn National or Colonial?
She has not. The race she ran at Penn National was an early race on the card. They field turf races early, still during daylight, and then the race, Virginia Oaks night, I think was run about 7:30, which is still late in the middle of July down there in Virginia. So she hasn't, but we got out this morning early and gave her a little gallop around the track here at Churchill, just to kind of let her see what it's like. They've done a great job here with these lights. There's not a lot of shadows being cast. So she's pretty straightforward filly for me. She's the kind to dream about that they run hard every time, and they're quality as well.
That's a wonderful combination. Trace, all congratulations with all of your successes with Nellie Cashman. Best of luck this evening in the Mrs. Revere, and thank you so much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch.
Thanks for having me on. Thank you very much.
Take care, Trace. Trace Abbott, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we've got some news for you before we leave you this morning, beginning overseas with Trev, who overcame a difficult wide trip to dominate the Arc de Triomphe by 5 lengths. She has been named the Cartier Horse of the Year in Europe. No surprise. The 3-year-old filly was unbeaten in 2013, having also captured the Prix Vermeil and the Prix Diane. Trev, who is trained by Cricket Head Marek, is scheduled, thank goodness, for a return to have a 4-year-old campaign in 2014. And Dance to Bristol, the very consistent and well-traveled sprinting filly, has been retired. Based in the Mid-Atlantic with trainer Ollie Figgins, Dance to Bristol won 7 of 10 starts this year with 2 runner-up finishes. Her year was highlighted by a victory in the Grade 1 Ballerina at Saratoga. She ended her career with a 6th-place finish in the filly and mare sprint. And Starship Truffles, who went from a $6,000 claimer to a Grade 1 stakes winner, has also been retired. A winner of 14 career races, highlighted by the Grade 1 Princess Rooney, Starship Truffles finished last in the filly and mare sprint. Congratulations to Hall of Fame jockey Gary Stevens, who was voted the Big Sport of Turfdom Award given by the Turf Publicists of America. And Harlan's Holiday was euthanized back on November 1st in Argentina. Originally owned by Jack and Lori Wolf, Harlan's Holiday was a very good racehorse, having earned, I think, just shy of $2.5 million, and turned out to be a very good sire. And about a week or so before the Saratoga meet this past summer, I had a chance to have dinner with Jack and Lori Wolf, and, asking about all kinds of horses they've owned and stories. And Jack said that Harlan's Holiday, of all the horses he's ever owned, was the one who exceeded expectations the greatest. So Harlan's Holiday is dead. All right, time to wrap things up and time to thank all the folks who helped get this week's show on the air. Our associate producer, Julie Hoxie. Great job with the 4 first-time guests this morning, Brian Dorenzo and Mick Richards. Back in the control room in Schenectady, Pat Peretta directed, Landis Burgess on audio. And thanks to this week's guests, Mandy Pope and Malcolm Pierce, and Nick Gonzalez and Trace Abbott. And thanks to our sponsor, our friends at Embrace the Race, Mike D'Anzaris and all the folks there, the apparel for the horse racing lifestyle, available at the Museum of Racing, at their new store at 12 Circular Street in Saratoga, and online at embracetherace.com. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you so very much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. We appreciate it. Enjoy this wonderful weekend in the mild temperatures. Enjoy the racing action from coast to coast right here at Capitol. Have a wonderful upcoming week. And from all of us here at Down the Stretch, we'll see you next week.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.